I want to welcome everybody to this webinar today on a new and very exciting program, Accelerating Research Translation, also known as ART. My name is Pradeep Fulay. I'm one of the program directors in the TIP Directorate here at NSF, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you. We do recognize a number of you are still joining in. We will be recording this webinar, so recording would be available to you. Another thing I want to remind you is that during the webinar, whatever information we are sharing, if there is any kind of discrepancy between what we are presenting versus what's described in the NSF Solicitation 23558, as well as the NSF PAPPG, that those documents take precedence. So please make a note of this. Secondly, if you do have some questions, please drop them in the Q&A. We will do our best to answer those questions either during the webinar or perhaps later on in the FAQs and other opportunities that we'll be discussing a little bit later today. So again, I want to welcome all of you for joining us today. This is a very exciting program called ART, Accelerating Research Translation. Let's go to the next view graph, please. This program involved a number of people. I want to acknowledge them. These are my NSF colleagues. In particular, I want to thank Dr. Nina Maung-Gaona, Dr. Daniel Goetzel, Dr. Soriano, and a number of other colleagues here at NSF who have made valuable contributions to this program. And these are your points of contacts. And of course, you can always contact us with an email to art@nsf.gov. Let's go to the next view graph. So this is the brief outline for the webinar. We are going to talk a little bit about why do we think this program is most timely and the time is really opportune for this program, ART program. What are the goals and visions for this program? Who are some of the potential beneficiaries of the ART program? Some information related to funding, budgets, and so on, some of the key dates. And then we will discuss our review criteria for this program, as well as that will include not only the standard NSF criteria, but solicitation specific criteria. And then we'll take, as I mentioned before, some questions and try to answer those as time allows. And as I mentioned before, we will be sharing or recording this webinar. So let's go to the new slide here. And I want to welcome our leader for the TIP Directorate, who is the acting, AD for TIP Directorate. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Erwin Gianchandani, and he is going to take you through the rationale for this program and why are we launching it now. So Erwin, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Pradeep. It's great to be with you this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you might be located. And it's great to be with the NSF team and everyone else who's taking time out to join this webinar today. I can't stress just how excited we are about this new program, Accelerating Research Translation. This is a program that's been a long time in the coming here at NSF, but I think even longer in the coming from the perspective of many of you in the community. Before I get to this slide and the next couple ones that I'm going to cover, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the folks whose names you saw a couple of slides ago. Pradeep whizzed through that pretty quickly, but I have to stress that the fact that we have this program and the fact that we have this program in this form is largely a testament to the leadership and the vision that our colleagues from across NSF, led by Thyaga, who's on the screen, but also Pradeep as the lead program officer, and then the rest of the team from TIP, but all of the directorates across the foundation have really come together to help shape and support. So my thanks to them for their leadership, their thought leadership, and my thanks also to many of you in the community. many of you in the community who have been instrumental in encouraging that an agency like NSF should really try to devote time and energy toward this type of a challenge, trying to address this type of a challenge. And so that takes me to this particular slide, which speaks to the why now. Why are we running this program now? And in many ways, it has its roots, not just of our program officers, not just in the leadership of you all in the community, but it has its roots also in the CHIPS and Science Act legislation that Congress passed and the president signed into law this past summer. That legislation very specifically calling out a section, many of us here at NSF have it memorized, that number like the back of our hands, 10391, which specifically calls for building capacity and infrastructure for use-inspired and translational research. And specifically doing so at institutions of higher education all across the US. This is the section of that very extensive statute, that very extensive piece of legislation that's really meant to try to provide institutions of higher education with what they need from an education standpoint, from a mentoring standpoint, from a training standpoint of students at the undergraduate, graduate, postdoctoral levels to advance use-inspired research and really to put a spotlight on translational research and to really be able to bring to bear all the needs that an institution has to support that endeavor as we move forward. And as I said a moment ago, not only is it codified in statute, the CHIPS and Science Act, but it's something that it's clear you all in the community at institutions of higher education are really eager to engage in this way. I think we've heard from so many of you who are excited by programs like the regional innovation engines that NSF has launched through the TIP Directorate over the last year, but other investments that we have across all of our portfolios in science and engineering, where there are opportunities to really be able to accelerate the translation of research results to practice. Well, that's great, but you need the capacity, you need the support structures, you need the in-house talent, you need the experience to be able to do that. And we're really hopeful that this program is a step to being able to address that section of the legislation, but also to help address that clear and pressing need that I think rallies all of you together, or rallied all of you together even before this legislation passed. So if we go to the next slide, I want to emphasize one really important point here in terms of what we see as the goals of this program. It is to build capacity and infrastructure for translational research at institutions of higher education. And I'll talk about this in just a second, but it's really important to us when we talk about translational research to really define this very broadly. So stick with me for just a moment and I'll get to that definition in a second. As we think about this, building capacity and the support structures is critically important. It's also important to train the next generation of talent in translational research, graduate students, undergraduate students, and so forth, so that they have exposure to what this work is like, and it can allow them to be able to contemplate the myriad career paths that they might consider into the future, perhaps in academia, but also in industry, in state and local and tribal governmental organizations, and the whole landscape of possibilities into the future. And when we think about translational research projects and what we hope to achieve with this program, it's doing so across all the scientific and engineering and technological disciplines that NSF traditionally supports. Not picking any one or any other, but really emphasizing support for translational research across the board. And so if we go to the next slide, this is where I want to just stress for a moment how we're defining translational research and tech transfer for the purposes of this program. You know, oftentimes when we talk about translational research, that research that goes into taking discoveries from the lab and really pushing them forward in a particular way so that they can have practical applications that can be deployed at scale. Or when we talk about tech transfer, the process by which translational research really achieves its impact. In either of these contexts, we often associate translational research or tech transfer to commercialization, new products, new services, new capabilities that emerge in the market. And while that's certainly an element of this program, I can't stress enough that when we think about technology transfer or translational research in the context of TIP, in the context of NSF, and now in the context of this particular program, we are really trying to be intentional about the myriad possibilities when it comes to translational impacts. Some of it could take the form of open source ecosystems. Some of it could take the form of social entrepreneurship. Some of it could take the form of technologies and solutions that are making their way into civil society, into communities, and being really adopted and scaled in communities and regions across the country. And so I would urge you, as you think about this program, that you keep these definitions of translational research and tech transfer in mind, because it's something that I think is really near and dear to our hearts at NSF, and from everything that we've heard from the community, also near and dear to many of your hearts as well, as we think about trying to build capacity for the myriad possibilities when it comes to technology transfer and translational research. So with that, I can't stress enough just how excited we are about this program, and so excited that we have over 1,200 folks on the call today, and looking forward to seeing not just your questions today and over the coming weeks, but also the proposals that come in and the impact that we hope to be able to achieve by really engaging a broader cross-section of the nation in translational research and taking discoveries and innovations to practice at scale. So with that, I will hand things back over to Pradeep to take us the rest of the way with this webinar.
Yeah. Thank you, Erwin, and thank you for your leadership. Let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to invite the director, the division director for ITE, Dr. Thyaga Nandagopal, who has also played a key role in helping us launch this program. So I'm going to hand it over to Thyaga.
Thank you, Pradeep, and thank you, Erwin, and the whole team for making this program a reality. As Erwin mentioned, I think our goal is to catalyze this change across institutions of higher education through this program. And why do we want to do this? It's essentially because we see today the translational research being driven by selected individuals who are highly motivated to have an impact, to drive impact on society through their work. And it requires a certain level of institutional infrastructure and support that sometimes when the highly motivated faculty members are supported by the institutional infrastructure, they're able to achieve that success. But often when one or the other are lacking, it leads to very low levels of translation activity. And we often see this as a situation in many, many institutions, even among the R1s of this country, right? So what happens as a result is we see these disconnected islands of translation where some people are successful and they go on to talk about what they do, but others don't feel like they can actually get there. They can do it for whatever reason, right? Either the institution doesn't support it or they don't see it as something that they want to do. And that's the thing we want to change with this program. We really want to encourage the mindset among faculty members, students, and postdocs who, in addition to pursuing their research, view translation as a natural, organic next step for their research outcomes, right? And in order for that to do, the institutions need to be able to support that. So they need to have the capacity and the associated infrastructure to not just focus on commercialization, but to focus on societal impact, liaising with the communities to develop and design the technologies that are produced in the lab to benefit the communities where they're situated in, and so on. So help influence policy, decision to make data-driven decision making, and so forth. So understanding the wide array of translational activities requires institutions to have a certain capacity and infrastructure, and we want this program to build that. And cumulatively, changing the mindset of the faculty members as pursuing translation through a natural organic next step, coupled with institutional capacity, we are hoping would lead to very high levels of translation of research outcomes everywhere, right? And then by creating this vibrant community, we hope that these practitioners who are successful in translating research will continue to educate and nurture this enthusiasm for doing so across the country, across all fields of research. Next slide. And therefore, the vision essentially is to say, let's think beyond where we see today of the state of translation. It may be currently happening in a few places in the country in a successful way, but we want to transform every institution of higher education to become powerhouses in translational research, right? And we want to do so by creating robust and sustainable institutional capacity beyond NSF support, right? And when the folks within these institutions, whether it's the researchers, the faculty members, the postdocs and others who are enthused enough to pursue translational research as an option, as a core thing that they would like to do, and they learn about it, how to do this in the same breath as how they learn to do fundamental research. We are hoping that we will create these cohorts who will create this network effects and support knowledge transfer through what their experiences teach them, right? Both through successes and through failures. That's our vision for this program. Next slide. And I want to emphasize this. Most often people think of translational research as something that happens, say, in the medical field or in the engineering and the computer science fields, right? And again, with this program, we want to really emphasize that translational research, when we talk about it, encompasses the entire scientific enterprise. And here we are showcasing the 7 research directorates that NSF supports, right? These are the areas where we support fundamental research in today. And we are thinking of translational research for everything here. So if you're a social scientist or an economist or an educator or somebody who studies water systems or a mathematician, all of you should find yourself in this program, right? Usually every field produces research outcomes that may be of interest, that can be used to deliver real world practical impact, influencing other scientific disciplines, or it can influence the society and the community that you live in, or the field of commerce and economics in general. That think broad and think about it, and we are really ready to support through this program translational activities across the entire institutions of higher education across all the scientific areas. So with that, I want to hand it back to Pradeep to walk through the mechanics of the program.
Thank you, Thyaga. Can we go to the next view graph? Fantastic. So as Dr. Gianchandani mentioned, as well as Dr. Nandagopal mentioned, so we want to make this very, very clear that we are looking, this is really a challenge to the institutional leadership or leadership within institutes of higher education. We are looking for institutes of higher education where the actual research activity, the foundational research activity is at a high level, but at the same time, when you look over the years, for whatever reason, the output in terms of translational activities is lower. How an institution defines whether the research activity is high or the translational activity is low, we are going to leave that for the institutions to define it, to take a look at any data they can take. But really, we are looking for institutions that currently have higher levels of what I would call as foundational or fundamental research activity, overall very high volume of research, but lower levels of translational activities. That is the kind of spirit of the ART program, that we want to really change the status quo across all the scientific disciplines supported by the Institute of Higher Education and those funded by NSF. So let's go to the next view graph. So this is the most common question that we have gotten, and we anticipated this because the number of metric that can be used in terms of what fundamental research, how foundational research means. It could be your research expenditures, it could be number of publications, number of PhDs, and so on. And what does low translation mean? Translational activities could be measured by a number of parameters, number of metric. It could be, some of them could be related to commercialization, some of them could be related to the impact on communities, and some of them may or may not be measurable. So this is precisely why we are asking, every institution is different, and we are asking the institution really to take a look and see if there is an opportunity. Art is really an opportunity for them to say, how can we create more societal impact? How can we be more related to our communities? How can we be having more impact on the society directly through translational activities? And really, the art program is meant to be an accelerant or a catalyst to make that transition happen. Let's go to the next slide. So keep going here. So what we are trying to show here is if you look at overall research activity on the x-axis and the translational activities, however you measure those two parameters on the x and y-axis, what you see in the bottom left are really institutions. Those might be predominantly undergraduate institutions, maybe where the activities, overall volume of research and translational activities are low. So that is one group of institutions. Art program is not primarily intended for those institutions, at least during this stage. Then what you look at on the top right corner of this chart is the green ellipse, where these are the institutions where the overall research activity is high, as well as the translational activities by whatever metric they are measured, those are also high. And then if you look at the golden ellipse, which is on the bottom right side, where the overall research activities are high, but the translation is low, and the arrow is meant to show that art program is really help these universities, these institutes of higher education move towards the green ellipse with the fuel that the art program is willing to provide. And we also look for partnerships between institutions that are currently having a very robust translational activity, a translational ecosystem, and how can we get partnership between those institutions versus those that are willing or they have the desire, they have the fire in the belly to kind of step up and move up in terms of their translational activities that will create impact on commercialization, impact on societal benefits, and social entrepreneurship, training of graduate students, postdocs, and so on. Let's go to the next view graph. So this one, again, kind of highlights the gap that we see, whichever metrics, again, on the y-axis, you can have any metric in terms of what measures either the overall research funding, that's the blue curve on the top, and the translational outcomes. The blue curve and on the x-axis, you can take the number one institution that has overall highest research funding, and then you go down from 1 to 100, and you can keep going further down on that x-axis as well. We see that gap that is illustrated here by the green arrows as to what the art program is intended to really do is bridge that gap for academic institutions which have currently, again, low levels of translation, but relatively higher level of research funding. Let's go to the next view graph, please. Okay, so in terms of talking about some of these details, all of these details are in the solicitation, so I'm not going to read all of this information here. You can look it up. But in the big picture, what we are looking to do in the first go is we are looking to fund up to 10 awards per year, 10 awards in this upcoming round, and the award size will be up to $6 million and up to 4 years in duration. So that is what we are looking for in terms of the first round of this particular program. Let's go to the next one. So these are, again, details available to you. There is no pre-proposal that is required. We do not want a one-pager saying, is your idea right fit for the program, etc. We do not encourage that. The proposal deadline is May 9th, 2023 for this year. And then we do have another webinar that is being planned that will occur on March 16th, 2023 at 2 o'clock Eastern. We'll present a brief overview and we'll have a lot more time to answer many questions that we may or may not be able to answer today. Let's go to the next one. So in terms of eligibility, once again, all institutes of higher education can participate in art in some form, either as a lead or as a partner/mentor. Okay, once again, I would repeat this, that it is up to the institution of higher education to make a case, to look at their own data, look at their own volume of research, look at the translational activities, and figure out if art is really the right program for them. Will they actually be fitting in and truly represent the spirit of what is the art program intended at. Okay, so this is going to be self-determination, and you can provide data in your proposal to make that case. It is also very important for me to point out that these are necessary conditions, but they are not sufficient. And what I mean by that is really what the proposals should really, what we are looking for is the proposal should really argue and figure out and articulate that what difference will art funding make in terms of the entire institution. That is why it is very, very important for the entire leadership at the Institute of Higher Education, starting perhaps with the president, vice provost for research, all the way to the deans, associate deans, and department chairs and faculty to really believe in this, that they are here to really make a difference in terms of societal impact, in terms of economic impact, and how they are connected with the rest of the world, rest of the communities. So this is really, really a key to in terms of how, for which institutions is this program right for. So if you believe in this mission of art program, this is absolutely the program for you. Okay, next, let's go to the next one. Okay, so what does the program actually fund? Again, the focus is at the entire institution. We look at institutions holistically. We are not going to be granular and looking at whether there's a strong medical school or a strong engineering school or a law school or business school. We are going to be focused on looking at the big picture and what can we do, what will the art program do in terms of building and strengthening the capacity for translational research, both in the short and in the long term. That's what we are looking for. The program will fund translational research projects. This has been outlined in the solicitation. And this is the most important, one of the most important parts is really what is the plan in terms of education and training of students, faculty, postdoctoral researchers. So that is another, in terms of non-academic pathways that are not traditional, trying to train them to become faculty members at different institutions. So what are some of the other educational activities that will take place in relation to this particular program? So let's go to the next view graph. And this is where I would invite my colleague, Dr. Daniel Goetzel, to come and speak to us about some of the details about the art program. So Daniel, the forum is yours.
Great, thanks so much. I'm actually not a doctor, but I appreciate the promotion to being a doctor today. So how do we think about capacity building for this program? We are thinking about this, how do you build the things that your institution needs in order to develop a strong translational apparatus? So it's not just about funding specific projects, but it's how do you develop this translational apparatus? So, some things that funds could be used for are subawards to an IHE, with a well-established translational ecosystem. So that could be someone who can help mentor and partner with you on a number of the activities. It could be to develop tech transfer office capacity, whether that's staffing or if that's launching new programs, expanding new programs. We mentioned in the call for proposals that a project coordinator position is encouraged to help manage this effort. Other things that funds could be used for are community liaisons, helping on patenting costs, set up costs for market analysis, understanding where opportunities might exist. Even subawards are allowed to industry. And then the last thing on this list here is talking a bit about equipment, prototyping, things like that. We're saying that you can use up to $50,000 a year on those type of equipment costs, but we don't think that should be kind of the bulk of the award cost. Next slide, please. So when you think about this, it's not just about the inputs, it's about the outputs. I think Pradeep talked about that earlier. And what we really want to do is help develop these institutional capacity and the infrastructure to be able to do this work in the short term and the long term. So it isn't just about finding that one great project, but actually helping to build that infrastructure so you can rinse, repeat, and continue to grow, and also continue to expand to new and diverse opportunities around translational activities. We need to continually train the next cohort of graduate students, postdocs, PhDs, and set them up for careers that might be in academia, but also set them up for entrepreneurial careers that could be at startup companies, that could be launching their own ventures, working in venture capital, working in state and local government, working in other places where they can drive translational impact. And one thing I think that's really unique about this program, which we've touched on before, is the creation of the Art Ambassador Network. So, each institution that receives an award will have their art ambassadors. These can rotate over the life of the award. And then they'll also be interacting with ambassadors at other institutions who are also in the cohort. So that co-learning and that opportunity to kind of help spread the gospel within your institution and across cohorts and figure out best practices is what we're really excited about. So we'll have that ambassador network, we'll have the training and translational component, and then perhaps, one of the most important components is building this long-term capacity and helping you fund things that you can't fund right now to develop that capacity. Next slide, please. So here are some of the core proponents of what we're looking for in our proposal. So number one, we've talked about it, capacity building. We want you to outline your challenge and opportunities. We want you to provide some evidence about what you're going to be looking at and how you're going to be measuring that. We recognize none of this work can be done inside of an academic institution alone. So what are your strategies for external partnerships to bring in co-funding opportunities, to bring in other partners, to bring in the type of people who can help translate these technologies, and how do you intend to sustain that effort? How do you measure the impact? And then what's the plan for the ambassador network? What does that look like for standing it up? How will it evolve over time? We intentionally are building this very broadly, where a number of different types of people, both within the institution and outside of it, can serve as art ambassadors. And we'll have a little bit more on that in the next slide. We think education and training with specific focus on postdoc researchers and graduate students around creating translational pathways, whether that's, in tech transfer, startups, VC, otherwise, we want to understand your plan to create these career pathways for people who might be considering non-academic careers. Next slide, please. And then, as you all know, a portion of the budget can be used to fund specific seed projects. And these are projects where there's a high opportunity for translational impact in the near term. So these are projects that we think, by putting a bit of money into them, you can generate a much larger impact. So that can be a societal impact, that can be, the creation of a company, that can be getting to that next level of data that allows you to go out and raise additional capital. There's a lot of ways to determine that. So we're not going to get involved in kind of the selection of the individual seed projects, but we want to understand your rationale, your criteria, the process that you're going to be using to select these projects. And then we want to know what are the different outcomes that you're going to be measuring throughout their translational process, and what's the exit strategy? What does it mean to graduate? And some of these projects are going to fail. We understand that, and that is completely fine as well. And we want to understand, what does it mean when a project is going to be removed from it? So, at the end, through this process, we want to be understanding what will it look like at the end of this program when they graduate in terms of technology or knowledge transfer and transition, and what does that look like from an economic development perspective, from a societal impact perspective. So we want to understand how you're going to select these projects, how you're going to support them through the process, and how they're going to exit. So putting together a really intentional plan for the selection process of thinking about who needs to be involved in selecting these projects for translational impact is going to be an important part here. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is really important for the training activities, but it's also for the selection processes for projects and how we build capacity across the institution. So we want to make sure that we are creating a diverse cohort of participants in every aspect of this program. Next slide, please. Who should be the lead PI or principal investigator? That should be the lead art ambassador. And this person should be, charged with developing the vision and leading this effort for building capacity within the institution. This is not necessarily the person who has, the best research project, but the person who can lead this effort across the institution and has the ability to make the connections within the building and outside of the building to drive this work and expand this work. This individual will also help lead the work of developing the university's or the IHE's Art Ambassador Network and working across other institutions and interacting with their art ambassadors and learning from each other and creating best practices and templates and everything else. And then this individual also will be involved in creating the different curriculum opportunities for the students who are looking to pursue translational and entrepreneurial careers. So that is what we're thinking about when we think about the principal investigator. Thanks so much. Next slide. So co-PIs and senior personnel, these can be individuals who are working on the seed translational projects. They can also be individuals within the institution who are designing, conducting curricular and training activities for students, postdocs, faculty, and everybody else. So we're very flexible on how you define your co-PIs and senior personnel. We just want to understand what unique things are they going to bring to the equation to support this effort. Next slide. Who can be an art ambassador? And I think what's really important here is to see how many types of stakeholders we want to see involved in this network. This is not just principal investigators or researchers. It is not just administrative folks. It can also include people from within the university, outside of it. I mean, all of these are listed in the solicitation, but just a couple of examples, individuals from tech transfer, from the community relations and external partnerships offices, industry leaders, alumni, investors, community organizations, foundations, whoever is going to be kind of central to translating this effort and building capacity within the institution and driving impact is who we want to see at the table. So this is perhaps a much broader definition of art ambassadors than maybe you've seen at other programs. And that's intentional. And we want you to think about it in a very broad sense. And also, who are the people who should be driving this work and who can bring unique perspectives to the work when you think about your cohort of art ambassadors and your selection process for art ambassadors. Next slide, please. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Nina, who will walk us through the merit review criteria.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be finishing out the slides by providing an overview of the review criteria, starting with the NSF merit review criteria. So most of you already know that the NSF proposals must address two criteria for full consideration during the review and decision-making process: intellectual merit and broader impacts. And the proposal must address both criteria. The solicitation provides 5 elements to be considered in addressing these criteria. I won't go through each of the 5, but in a nutshell, the review panel will be looking for evidence that the proposed activity has the potential to advance knowledge, benefit society, is creative and transformative, well-reasoned, well-organized, that there is a mechanism to assess success, that the team is well qualified, and that there are adequate resources available to the team to carry out the proposed activities. I encourage proposing teams to map the proposal concept and the activities to these 5 elements as a way to self-evaluate. And remember that a statement on the intellectual merit of the proposed activity and a separate statement for broader impacts of the proposed activity must be included in your project summary. Next slide, please. Okay, the solicitation also has 4 additional solicitation-specific review criteria, meaning that these are 4 additional criteria that are specific to art. The first one focuses on whether the capacity building activities will have long-term sustainable impact at the institution. So here you'll want to make sure that you make a clear case for the high fundamental research activity and the low translational activity. Remember that we are giving you the opportunity to define this and how your proposed activities will address that opportunity space in a way that is transformative in terms of setting the institution on a growth trajectory for its research translation capacity. And there's a few, next slide, please. Great. And there are a few additional components to this criteria. And it's whether the rationale and the motivation for the proposed plan is clearly defined, whether there is a clear commitment at the institution level to boost research translation capacity through the art mechanism, whether there is evidence that the PI will be intensely engaged, and also whether the key participants will be engaged as strategically appropriate in the project activities, and also whether there is a feasible evaluation plan to assess the impact of art. Next slide. The second art-specific additional review criteria is on education and training. And here we're looking for a clear evidence-based plan for education and training of the students and the postdocs in translational research activities, and whether this will help them be successful if they choose to pursue non-academic pathways. The spirit of this is that many students and postdocs are engaged in fundamental research, are very familiar with the key aspects of the research domain, so publishing and conferences and compliance, etc. But overall, they are less familiar with aspects related to research translation, such as the community engagement, the user need discovery, disclosure filing, patents, startups, etc. So the education and training experience they obtain through art should focus on the aspects of research translation in a meaningful way, so that they can develop valuable competencies to remain engaged in research and in research translation through non-academic career pathways. Next slide. The third art-specific additional review criteria is on the seed translational research projects. Here, the focus is on looking for evidence that the proposed stirrups have the potential for successful translation, but also that there is a clear procedure for how the initial stirrups were selected and how the future stirrups will be selected, and how broadly representative they will be of the various scientific disciplines supported at the institution. Next slide, please. The fourth art-specific additional review criteria is on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility plan. Here, we're looking for evidence that the institution has a strong commitment to DEIA and that there are activities that are proposed in both the short and the long term to integrate DEIA principles in a holistic fashion. And what is meant by holistic is that we see robust participation of individuals from such groups across the leadership and the management of the art project, as well as in the stirrups. And we also want to see evidence in both the short and long term, reflecting that these DEIA principles into the policies and the practices of the institution to creating a more diverse and inclusive environment for research and research translational activities and their participants. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm just going to close out by sharing some information about upcoming events and how to communicate with the art team. As Pradeep mentioned, our next event will be on Thursday, March 16th at 2 p.m. We will be posting a recording of today's webinar on our program site for everyone to view at their convenience. That link has been provided in the chat. So on March 16th, we're going to just provide a brief overview and then focus more on Q&A. And we will do some Q&A today, but probably won't have time to go through all of your questions. We will also have an art office hours sometime towards the end of March. It will be more in a smaller group discussions with the NSF program directors. And as we gather the questions that we're getting, we are planning to release an FAQ in the next few weeks. I also pasted in the chat a link to sign up for our art listserv. So as soon as the registration opens for the next webinar, or when the FAQs are posted, or we do the office hours, you'll be notified immediately if you're part of the listserv. And finally, please don't wait to ask your questions. You can send those questions to art@nsf.gov. And we will get back to you as quickly as we can. The general inbox is already very active, and it's really the best way to communicate with us. All right, so that concludes our formal part of the presentation, and we're going to segue now into our Q&A. So thanks so much for submitting your questions. There are quite a few. We're going to do our best to capture all the questions and answer as many as we can today, either in today's webinar or the next webinar or the FAQ document. All right, so I'm just going to now look at the questions and try to get through as many of these as we can. All right. Okay, first question. This is a question we're getting quite a bit. How do I know if my organization is eligible to apply for the art program? Thyaga, will you take that one?
Can you repeat the question again, Nina? Sorry.
Sure. How do I know if my organization is eligible to apply for the art program?
Okay, number one, you have to be an institution of higher education. Number two, I'm sure your institution has data that shows how much is the level of research, fundamental research activity that your institution has today. It could be evidenced by a number of metrics that your institution is probably well capable of addressing. It's in fact a competitive metric that many institutions use to compare themselves, so it's up to them. And third is to say, how do you assess your current level of capacity and activity for translational research? I think we went over this in the discussion earlier. Pradeep covered it very well. It's essentially talking about the range of metrics. And the reason we are shying away from saying, here is a threshold below which you're eligible, you're not eligible, and above which you're not eligible, is because translational activity can span multiple types of activities. It can be tech transfer, as many people traditionally like to think. We are expanding, as multiple speakers pointed out in this webinar, we're expanding the definition of translational research to not just focus on commercialization, but also look at societal impact. It could be community engagement, policy impact on other scientific disciplines and the like. So think of how your institution fares in respect to supporting such activities. Look at the institutional capacity for supporting such intent, right? So if there is a faculty member who wants to pursue these actions, how does the institution know to support them? And that self-assessment and the self-determination is something that institutions should feel that they should make, and say, if you feel that you are not there yet, that you need to build that capacity, provide that justification as part of the proposal. So that's how I would say an institution makes a determination.
Thank you, Thyaga.
And Nina, can I quickly add that some of the, in addition to what Thyaga already said, right? Some of the things in terms of translational activities, as Dr. Gianchandani pointed out and Thyaga pointed out as well, some of them are not quantifiable, right? Some of the societal. So I think this is another reason why we are not going to provide any kind of numerical metric, although some of that information can certainly be used. It's really up to, there's so much variability, and it's up to the institutions to really, define this for themselves.
Great, thank you. Okay, the second question is about partnerships. Is partnerships with institutions of higher education that has a robust ecosystem for translational research required? Daniel, will you take that one?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm gonna broaden it. So the question is, can you partner with high-performing research institutions with high translational output? And the answer is yes. They cannot receive more than 10% of the budget, but we encourage you to explore those partnerships if they make sense for your institution. We think there's a lot to be learned from institutions that are doing this well. We think there's mentorship opportunities. We think there's partnership opportunities on that front. What I would say is we're not just looking for very, very successful universities to just kind of outsource some curriculum and kind of drop it on someone else's plate. This actually is meant to be a partnership and a meaningful engagement. I think we have some language in the solicitation saying that it's not required, but we encourage partnerships with other institutions that are regionally based. And then there's some other questions I just thought I'd address right there around partnerships in general. Only one institution of higher education can lead, but we are very interested in you developing different types of partnerships with other institutions as a part of your proposal and laying that out in your proposal. So I just want to kind of clarify about how we use the term partnerships in this program. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, the next question is, how important is the institution commitment? Pradeep, will you take that one?
Yeah, sure. So I think this is really the key, right? This really goes to the heart of the art program, that we want to see a transformation at the entire institute, right? So that means right from the top leadership at that higher institute of higher education, we want these institutions to have a very bold vision as to where they want to be, not in 200 years, but in the next 4 to 5 to 6 years, where do they want to be in terms of what impact are they having in addition to their core mission in terms of education, generating knowledge and education of undergraduate, graduate, and postdoctoral students. Beyond that, what is the connection to society? What do they want to do to make a difference? I think those are the institutions really. So we're looking for institutions that are absolutely passionate about this. So this is really a challenge for the vice presidents for research, the presidents of the institutes, the deans, the associate deans, the department chairs, all of them collectively. So that's why the strong interest and strong commitment on part of those institutes of higher education is absolutely vital and critical for this particular program and the spirit of what this program really represents.
Excellent. Thank you, Pradeep. Could you also answer the next question? It's about whether their proposals can ask for more than 2 seed translational research projects initially.
So the solicitation requests that you start with 2 such translational projects, and Daniel mentioned before, how those projects are selected, that is up to the IHE. We are not going to be prescriptive on that, how those projects are selected. The process must be fair, must be transparent, must be equitable, and it has to have strong consideration in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I think, again, the idea is to demonstrate some quick successes. So we are hoping that this is going to lead, some of those seed projects are going to lead to success. And at the same time, if a project doesn't work out the way it is planned, they should be able to terminate that project and move on and identify another project.
Great, thanks. Okay, the next question is whether industry can be a partner on art projects. And I think Daniel already addressed this, but I'll just say we do encourage meaningful partnerships that add value to the institution of higher education to scale those translational activities rapidly. So industry, as well as other community organizations, nonprofits, et cetera, can certainly be partners. But the value of the partnerships must be articulated in the proposal. Just wanted to add that. Okay, next question. What are examples of activities or costs that will not be allowed as part of the art project? Daniel, to take that?
Sure, I'll catch some of them, and others let me know if I'm missing things. We're not going to be funding large purchases of equipment. I think we have kind of a 50K cap on an annual basis for that. This is not a program that is focused on, funding very, very early stage basic research projects. We are focused on kind of translational seed projects as a part of our funding pool, and also really on the capacity building that's needed at the institutional level to drive this work. So those are a couple of things that I'd say we would not fund. Perhaps Pradeep, Thyaga, Nina, there's other things also that you might want to add into the mix of things. I mean, this is not a program for kind of a small business to lead on it either. There might be opportunities for small businesses or startups to be involved in some of these seed projects, but I would say that we're not going to see a small business as the lead institution or the lead PI on this proposal process.
Just scanning to see if anybody wants to add anything to that.
No, I think we're good. Maybe we can ask the question, Nina, about the social science efforts. I think that
Yep.
would be.
Yeah. So the question is, will social science efforts be supported by this? Can you please provide a definition of social entrepreneurship and how it differs from traditional commercial entrepreneurship?
I'll take this one.
Okay.
And I think we emphasized this multiple times. We are looking beyond tech transfer, and we talk about societal impact as a co-equal of economic impact that we like to see from the translation of research outcomes. And when you talk about social impact and societal impact, we naturally see social science being an integral part of any kind of translation activity. So absolutely, right? Whether you're an education expert or you're a social scientist, behavioral scientist, or an economics person, you should find yourself as somebody who should be motivated to pursue this opportunity. And again, social entrepreneurship, just to add to that, it's more about how do you think of creative solutions to connect the research outcomes to benefit the people who are in our communities around the country. This could be the institution, the communities where your institution is situated, or other parts of the country who you are working with. How do you think creatively to deliver the benefits to the people in a sustainable fashion, in a way that they feel that they are getting the value out of it, and they understand the impact of this activity on them, right? So it has to be a meaningful, engaged partnership. So that's what we think of as social entrepreneurship, and we fully want to see that explored under this program, both from the perspective of the individual faculty members and the students who are pursuing that, and also from the perspective of building institutional capacity to do so. How do you engage meaningfully and provide a robust infrastructure to facilitate that seamless interaction between the faculty on one side and the communities on the other side?
Thank you, Thyaga. I see two questions that I can answer rather quickly, so I'm going to, because we have a little bit of time. So should this be submitted as a collaborative proposals? I just want to say collaborative proposals are not allowed for this. Proposals must be submitted by one lead institution of higher education. And the other quick question I see is, the question was, what are the two documents that Pradeep mentioned in the beginning? And that would be the solicitation, which is 23-558, as well as the PAPPG or the PAPG, which is 23-1. Just wanted to make sure I got those questions in. Okay, a couple more questions. Pradeep, is there a limit on how many art ambassadors we can have?
Yeah, there is no limit as such, but you have to again understand the spirit of the program. So we see art ambassadors as people. They could be your vice president for research, they could be a director of your tech transfer, people in the tech transfer offices, faculty members, center director, deans, department chairs, graduate students. So somebody, one has to remember that leadership and promoting translational research activities at all levels, okay? So it doesn't need to be a particular rank or above, and there is no particular number. So typically we expect an institution may have 10 to 15 people that would really be in the, they would be kind of the influencers, if I can use that term. So they would be the ones who are in a position to influence translational activities in some fashion. They may have the resources, maybe by virtue of their position, by virtue of the networks they are part of. But we certainly don't want 200, I think might be on much higher side. So I think 10 to 15 is probably a reasonable number in terms of how many art ambassadors, but there's no set number as such.
Can I just say one more thing on the Art Ambassador Network? I think the only limitation we have is how many can travel to our kind of annual convenings, which are 5, but that does not mean that it needs to be kind of the full cohort. And one thing I think that's really exciting about the Art Ambassador Network is the ability to learn from other institutions about what they're doing well and sharing best practices. Or let's say you're an external industry partner or an investor and you want to start working with an academic institution and you don't know where to start. You don't know where the entry point is. You know, we hope also those art ambassadors can be that gateway for external partners who want to figure out how to work with an institution on translational activities. So there's value in terms of the learning between the cohort, and also value in hopefully creating a front door for external partners who want to find a way to work with that institution on translational projects.
Thanks, Daniel. It's 3:01, but I want to squeeze in just one more question, and then I'll over to you, Pradeep, to close it out. Thyaga, this question is for you. If a PUI, are primarily undergraduate institutions eligible to apply, and can they be competitive given the focus on graduate and postdoc training?
Oh, actually, so I would say, look, if you are making the case that you have a high level of research activity, I think this is the program for you. But again, that's a determination that you have to make. And I understand that PUIs may not necessarily see themselves as in that bucket, and that's perfectly okay. And again, this is not the only program from TIP. And we are hoping to design more programs that will support the full range of institutions and help them in this translational activity. So if you don't see yourself in this program at this point, don't lose hope. We have more coming.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Pradeep, over to you to close out.
Yeah, so thank you, Nina. Thank you to all my NSF colleagues. I want to thank everybody who tuned in today. This is a super exciting program. We are very excited about this. And really, I think we would welcome you participate again in our next webinar, as well as we see, we expect very high quality proposals being submitted to this particular program. And we do know there are a number of questions that we could not get to. So please email some of those to us, as well as we would be putting out a FAQ document as well very soon. And once again, it's really up to the institution. If you want to see culture change, if you want to see your top leadership really engaged and see that here is a program it's not about the money, but it's really about the opportunity to make a difference, right? Make stronger connections to your community, have a stronger societal impact. So that's where the opportunity is. And I hope you can take this challenge up and get into some really great proposals for us to look at. And that's all we are hoping for out of this program. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us today. And we'll see you again. Thank you again. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.